Like,
Tim,
Premachi Sabko.
thanks.
Uh, Today I've taken the passage, very common passage. Everybody knows what is called as the Great Commission. So I will simply read it quickly. Matthew 28:16 to 20. And the 11 disciples went into Galilee to the mountain where Jesus had appointed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and spoke to them, saying, all authority is given to me in heaven and in earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all things, whatever I commanded you. And behold, I am with you all the days until the end of the world. Amen. So we are all familiar with this passage. So here we see this is the last uh, appearance of Jesus after resurrection with his disciples. And in this event, and after this follows the ascension. So there are 11 disciples only, because the 12th one, Judas, by that time was already gone because he committed suicide. So 11 disciples are here. So out of those 11, okay, I would like to share a little bit about two disciples about whom very little is written in the Bible, in the ministry of Jesus Christ. Only one incident about them are written. One is the doubting Thomas we call doubting Thomas, and another is Nathaniel, and the other name that we use for him is Bartholomew. So this is what I was praying about it, what I should be sharing, because after Pastor Raj told me in the afternoon today, so I was wondering what I could do. So I was thinking about the days that we are going through, and yes, I was remembering. I lost my mother in 2013, and in 2012 we had taken her to CMC Vellore. So she was undergoing some treatment in CMC Vellore, and in between the treatments, there used to be some days, gap days, where there were nothing particular. So we took chances in those days to go around and see some places. So it so happened that we went to Chennai. I went to a different places, and finally we ended up in St. Thomas Mount. So we all know about St. Thomas Mount. Why is it called so? And yes, we also went to the top of it, and there was one church, and inside the church there were some items on display as well as for sale. And I got one small booklet written about St. Thomas. So I bought that, and today I'm going to share about that in very brief. So it was in the year, it's written there it was written in that booklet that St. Thomas arrived in India in AD 52. He arrived somewhere near what we call today as Cochin, Kerala. Then he started his ministry, and he actually lived with the Jew families. So in those days, back in those days also, there were Jews living in India because they were trading people. So he used to always live with the Jew families, wherever he went. So like that, he lived with some Jew family there. And in that booklet, it's written the first incident that happened through him is that he used to go in the morning and watch all the priests do their prayers in the early morning. All the Hindu priests, they would, worship the sun, and then, they would offer their the waters, early morning waters, to the sun god. And the what we call as this lota, there is that vessel that we use, commonly use that vessel. um, in Hindi we call it lota, Nepali Hindi. So he observed them, offering water from that. And after a number of days, he opened his mouth and told the priests that they were not worshiping God, but they were worshiping a creation. Sun is a creation, but they were not worshiping its creator, the real creator God. So those Hindu priests, they told him like, who are you, from where you come, and how come you give us this sort of talk, like who do you think you are, and who is your God? All that kind of a dispute started. So Thomas, then they asked him like, how can you say that our God is not God and your God is God? So so Thomas said, in one of those days, when the argument took place like this, so Thomas told them, okay, you give me that jug of water, you give it to me. That jug of water that you have in your hand, you give it to me. So Thomas took that jug of water and said, I'm going to offer this to my God. So Thomas prayed and said, God, I'm offering this water to you. And he threw up the water in the sky. And you know what happened? The water did not fall down. The water stayed suspended in the air. And the priests were amazed and shocked. And they told Thomas that, okay, we have seen your God. So you have to come every day and tell us about your God. We would like to hear more about your God. So that's how he started telling the priests. And then they were the first disciples that Thomas made. So after some time, Thomas even went to the northern part of India, the India of those days, to a place called Tatanagar, which present day it is in Pakistan. And he converted a king there also, a royal family also. And he walked there in that place for about 2 years and again came back to the same place where he was ministering earlier. And then he went on like doing his ministry all over the coastal areas of southern India. And then eventually he came to the present place called Madras. I mean the present city called Madras. But back in those days, the whole of South India used to be called Madras. So Thomas eventually spent about 20 years doing his ministry in India, and in between, for 6 months, he went even to China. That's what the book says. Anyway, now in his days of ministry, God worked wonders and wonders, many miracles through Thomas. So just as Jesus had told them that you are going to do greater things than what you have seen me doing. So that's what it's written, that how many blind people he healed, how many like lepers he healed, how many kind of sick people he healed, how many demon possessed people he freed them. And basically finally I right now I only remember the number of the dead people that he raised, 52. It's written in that book that in his ministry Thomas raised 52 dead people from death. So I mean God raised through Thomas. So this is what Thomas had done, and we know the story that eventually he converted the daughter of the king of Madras also. So the people sycophants of the the king, those ministers or whatever you call them, they were unhappy with it. So why Thomas, this foreign preacher, is coming with foreign religion and preaching and converting even our king's family, even king's daughter, and then they said all those things against him to the king, and finally king gave the order to assassinate him, right? So we know the story and how he was assassinated. Now this was Thomas in the southern part of India. Now in the same book there is a mention of another person who was working alongside Thomas but in the northern part of India, that is Bartholomew. Now I was reading this in the Google, and I was reading this that the historians of the 3rd century, two famous historians of the 3rd century, have also recorded that Thomas indeed preached, Bartholomew indeed also preached in India, but they say that Bartholomew eventually he was martyred, in what the present day we call as Armenia. Because through Bartholomew's ministry, the king of Armenia of that time also got converted. So the king's brother got unhappy about it. So he ordered Bartholomew to be assassinated. So that is what those two historians have written. And they have even given the name of the king and the name of the brother of the king. So my Google page is open here. I'll try to quickly go there and see if I can get it. Okay, yeah, so Prince Astyages is the brother of the king. The king name of the king is Polymius, present day Armenia. Okay, and the name of the king's brother is Prince Astyages. Okay, now this is what the Western world, this is a tradition that Western world has believed in, and there is even a painting by the famous painter and sculptor Michelangelo about Bartholomew, how he was skinned before he was beheaded. But here it is written that the modern day scholars do not quite agree with that. And what is written in that text, the booklet that I read, is that Bartholomew, when Thomas was preaching in the southern part of India, Bartholomew was doing his ministry in the northern part of India, and eventually Bartholomew was murdered by temple priests in Varanasi. That is what is written in that book. Now, what do the modern historians say? The modern historians, contemporary scholars are more likely to believe that Bartholomew actually died in India, because the name of this king mentioned here, Polymius, they searched through the history of Armenia and they did not find any king reigning during that time in Armenia. However, there was a big sort of a governor kind of a person living in India whose name was Polymius. So the modern day scholars are more likely to believe that Bartholomew indeed died in India. But in that textbook that not booklet that I read, it is written that there is no concrete evidence for that, and a lot of research is to be done, still to be done. But they have given some reference. The author has given references to some writings of the old, from where he collected all this information. Now, what came to my mind is whether Bartholomew died in India or not. Thomas indeed died in India. So India is the country where we live. This is our country. We are all in India, living in India. And Jesus sent his hand-picked disciples, two of his hand-picked disciples, to minister to this country in his days, after his death, after his resurrection, and after his ascension. Now, even by today's standard, if God is to send two of his handpicked prophets to one country, one nation, what would it mean? Or what does it mean? So this is what came to my mind, that indeed God has placed so much importance of all the countries in the world. He has placed so much importance in this country called India by sending two of his handpicked disciples. And one of them was martyred here. A second one, we are not very sure, but he did his ministry. Both the historians of the 3rd century have written that, yes, he indeed did ministry in the northern part of India. So it means that how much God is entrusting all of us today, all of us believers, to, take his kingdom forward and be true to him. So may God help each of us, all of us, and whatever that we are doing today in His name, and to whatever good works that we are doing, whatever, like intercession we are doing in His name, may God help each of us continue to do this work faithfully and live faithfully until He calls all of us home. Thank you very much. May God bless all of us.
Thank you. Thank you, Dhiro, for